Have you ever wondered whether you have the right people on the bus, whether that team behind you, with this great entrepreneurial vision that you have, is following you? Are they helping you? I mean, have you ever struggled with this? And as an entrepreneur, I got to tell you, there is not any entrepreneur I've ever met that hasn't struggled with this. Well, in today's podcast, we're going to show you how to not only get everybody on the bus, but get them pointed in the right direction to achieve some amazing things. Stay tuned.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Shannon Waller from Strategic Coach. I am so excited to have you here with me today. Thank you for joining me by the magic of Skype here, Shannon.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, it's an amazing time in today's world. With technology, we can so magnify. And one of my coaches that I want to share is Shannon and the whole team of Strategic Coach. And they're big on 10X, this whole concept of 10X. And Shannon has a specialty. Not only is the 10X, but she's the team expert. And Shannon, I started the program, you heard, with, there's some of us as entrepreneurs, as fellow entrepreneurs like yourself, we've been frustrated. And I know you've got a lot of experience with this. But tell me what you do at Strategic Coach and why really the entrepreneurs listening to this or watching this should care.
Probably the best answer to that question is the thing that I do is really help your entrepreneurial team members get aligned with you. Ultimately, that's where the magic happens. If your team members are off in their own direction, if they don't know where you're going, if they don't care, all of those are massive issues that make running a business incredibly painful. And my goal in life is really to foster and strengthen that incredible teamwork that's possible between you and your team. When that really works, it's magic. You have a self-managing company, you're leveraged, you can take time away from the company, you get to focus on the future and what's going to happen. When it doesn't work, it looks like the worst kind of mess, the biggest complexities. And sometimes people think about growing and they're like, but I don't want to grow my team. I don't want more team members. In fact, I'd like to have fewer. So how to have that be an exciting, fun possibility and probability as opposed to something you dread, probably I would say is one of the things that I do that's most important.
Well, and I can tell every entrepreneur wants that because we know we need more than one person ourselves. As much as we have these great visions and want to go out and execute, we need a team. And one of the things that I've learned, and I kind of had a good part of it before starting with Strategic Coach. I've got a virtual company and I've got an awful lot of teammates working with me, but they're all entrepreneurs and self-managed. And I tell you, when you get there, it's so powerful. But let's go, Shannon. We see a lot of fellow entrepreneurs who they actually have great visions. They've got a good foundation in their business. They're already successful. And they're struggling with all the team issues, particularly as the marketplace is telling them to turn for opportunity. How do they deal with this? I mean, one way is sell the business. But beyond that, how are some of the other ways that you're seeing the most successful entrepreneurs really deal with these team challenges?
Well, there's lots of different kinds of team challenges. One of the most important ways to have people think about opportunity is to look at the opportunity and say, okay, is this an opportunity for me and my unique ability or our company's unique ability? And that's a term from Strategic Coach that you're very familiar with. And your unique ability, if you think of it this way, is simply what you love to do and are best at. You have a passion for it. Your eyes light up. You get really excited. And when you're involved in an activity or an opportunity that takes full advantage of that, where people like and appreciate and respect you and pay you lots of money and you get better as a result of engaging in that opportunity and they refer you, that's a check mark. That's a yes. When you have an opportunity that does not make the best use of your unique ability or your team's, that's really the challenge. So, but it really isn't a full opportunity unless it's not just your unique ability involved. So the whole aspect here is unique ability teamwork, which is something you're really good at, John. And so unique ability teamwork is that all those nuances of communication and sharing, being really clear on the results and how things need to happen, and making sure you've got the right talents involved and having the tools to facilitate that teamwork, I think is absolutely vital. So opportunity looks really exciting when you're surrounded by a very capable team who's just leaping at, the chance to do something bigger and better. And it doesn't look like any fun when you're doing it by yourself or with a team who really isn't engaged or doesn't care.
Yeah, no, and I've had both. And I think everybody watching this or listening to it, whether you're on the video podcast or the audio podcast, you've had these. Hopefully you've had both. Most of us have had those where as we're starting in business and just getting some really good traction, and we're looking around and not everybody's excited by the same vision. They're not enrolled and there's no self-management where, many of us started our businesses not to be, managers. We started our businesses to provide leadership and inspire. And that difference between having great success and not is having the team. And, one of the segments we do is Life Intrudes. So I'm going to just play the flash real quick here. And before we got started, Shannon, I was talking about the Life Intrude, and you shared with me that you didn't sign up for Strategic Coach to be the team leader. Talk about how Life Intruded, not so much for yourself, although I guess it did for you too, but for all those entrepreneurs that you've had the privilege of coaching.
Well, it was really interesting because how my whole team career passion happened was that I was at that point, selling Strategic Coach. My job was to attract people to the program and have them sign up and keep them in the program. And what that meant at that time, because we were really small, we were itty bitty, is that I would coach our clients in between the sessions. And a number of times they would call me up and say, Shannon, can you please explain this to my team? Because I'm not doing a very good job. Or the other phone call I got, which was completely fascinating, was a team member would call me up and say, what have you done to my entrepreneur? Because all of a sudden they were doing things differently and they had no idea why. So I realized that there was a really important connection needed between what entrepreneurs were doing at Strategic Coach, and I knew these tools would be incredibly useful for team members because they're good for people. And my job was to create a bridge between that. So that's really been the genesis of all of the programs and all of the intellectual capital we've created, is really because entrepreneurs talking to their teams and vice versa is not something that happens automatically or even every day. And unfortunately, we don't yet have the chip called Entrepreneur 101 that we can install in team members' heads. So until that time, they have me.
Well, no, and it's a scary thought. I don't think I want everybody to be a total entrepreneur, but the challenge, and it's in Strategic Coach, we get together quarterly with a whole bunch of, my group's about 50 really successful entrepreneurs, and the opportunity to share experiences is so great. And we come back, and I'm truly inspired every quarter to go out and change the world. And it would be so easy to just bring the notebook back and give it to the team and say, let's go do it. And we don't bring them along. What was the breakthrough? Let me go, breakthrough moment.
A real breakthrough moment was realizing that without communication and without clarity of what the direction that entrepreneurs were going in, the team had no chance of helping. And that's probably the biggest breakthrough I endeavor to create in everyone I coach, that actually I'm lucky enough to coach, because I really feel like it's a privilege when I get invited into that relationship. It's a very important one, and I always feel like it's a treat for me. But it's to really, for entrepreneurs to appreciate that. I've heard so many times where people keep it a secret. They're reluctant to share their goals. They're reluctant to share their vision because they're afraid that people may think that they're too big for their britches, that they might not support the idea, that they might not like it, or think something. Mm-hmm. And really, until your team is, first of all, if your team members do think that, frankly, it may not be the right team for you. But really, your best team members are going to be so excited. They are salivating. They are hungry to know what you're up to and what's in your head, all the good things, that is. They want to know where you're going because, frankly, that means that's where they're going. So if you're mysterious to them, it doesn't actually give them any confidence. So by sharing your goals and how great you can be together, that's incredibly inspiring and motivating and confidence building for a team. So that's one of the breakthroughs that I think is really important for people to recognize, that goals should not be a secret, that the more And actually they get richer, they get better, they get more fulfilled when you embrace other people's unique abilities to make them happen. I work very closely with Dan Sullivan, Bab Smith, who run and own Strategic Coach. And it's interesting. I know exactly what our goals are. We talk about them, if not every day, then at least every week. I know what is inspiring Dan. I know what's motivating Babs. And it's so great. And people also, I hope, know what's inspiring and motivating me. So together we get to really create what the future is going to be. And I can't imagine a more fulfilling partnership. That to me is just gold. And I know I'm not the only one who feels like that. So really for people to recognize that your goals are perfectly great and fine and inspiring, and your team needs to know what they are, I think that's one of the most important things.
Well, and listening to Shannon too, I mean, this is so important for all of us as entrepreneurs because we get caught up in our visions and we're charging really hard and we forget to enroll the rest of the team in this vision. And when you do, you get great other fellow entrepreneurs like Shannon that are with you. And not only are they with you in that they're doing the work, but this is a big part. I think Shannon, as Strategic Coach, you're one of the leaders doing this, is that you have the vision that Dan and Babs have, and it's clarity of goals and so on. But what's even more important is you do things that they don't know how to do, and it's your unique ability. And one of them, and that's why I asked you if you would join me on this podcast, is really dealing with the team issues. And this is so important for all of us as entrepreneurs because once we actually enroll everyone in and we have the right unique abilities working with us, things become, I don't want to say effortless because it's not even effortless at Strategic Coach. There's a lot of hard work, but it's amazing what, you guys should be really proud of what you accomplish and what you're helping entrepreneurs to do.
Thank you. But it feels like it's so much fun. It's exciting to come to work every day. And here's why, because I know that I can have an idea and I'm going to be working with a team of people that are going to make it even better. It could be a podcast that I'm recording. It could be the Team Success Handbook, or it could be a workshop program. It could be a sales presentation. And because of the teamwork, it's going to be far better than what I myself could do. I love knowing that. I'm up to big things, and I don't need to have it only be about me that did everything. In fact, that's kind of inefficient. I think people who say I did everything are kind of, that you can't play a very big game if you insist on doing every aspect of it yourself. So to your point, I think it's absolutely joyful is actually the word I use when you have people who love to do their aspect of it and fulfill your idea, and together you're stronger and better and have a bigger impact. That's fun. There's actually no limit to how big you can go with that mindset and with that operating principle.
Well, and I think this is very important too, because one of the things that I love about working with Strategic Coach is the ability to think exponentially, the 10x thought process. And so many of us as entrepreneurs, it's tempting to think incrementally. Maybe touch on that, because this is so important with the team part, because it's not hard to have I'm going to say an okay team if we're doing just incremental. But if we're going to play a big game, a large game, live a large life, and we're thinking 10x in growth and exponential, what is that, Shannon? How does that all come together?
10x is a really interesting, it's a concept. It's a way to think about things. And it's such a big multiple. When you add a zero to your revenue, to your profit, the number of your free days, whatever it is, all of a sudden your brain has to think differently. Dan has this great expression, it's easier to go 10 times than 2 times. And that sounds a little contradictory, but if you think about it, there's an interesting, dynamic happening. 2 times is doing what you're doing now a lot more. It's actually more time and more effort for 2 times the result. If you're going to do things 10 times, you actually have to completely shift and make a transformation to do things that are, much faster, much easier, much bigger, and probably much cheaper. You have to look for the exponentials, be it technology, but be it people's unique abilities. It forces you to think differently about things. And Dan likens it to the immigrant experience. I mean, someone leaving a country and coming to a new country, they can't bring very much with them. They only bring the essentials, and frankly, most of it's their own learning and their own mindset. So when you decide to go 10 times, you only bring the most essential things with you, which really are your goals, your key people, and your experience and your learning, and everything else you build as you go. So 10 times is a really powerful motivator. And one of the things I've found about it that's kind of a fascinating byproduct is it has you attract a much higher caliber of team member. It also has you attract a much higher caliber of clientele, which is another great byproduct. But in terms of the team, it's incredibly interesting to see who wants to play that size of a game. We have 4 criteria for great team member, which I think this audience would really
I want to hear this. I don't think I've heard this, Shannon. So what are
really?
I don't remember them. So
okay,
I will,
okay, good.
And we will transcribe the interview, and it will be available at aesnation.com. So definitely. But what are the 4?
So the 4 characteristics or capabilities that we look for in our team members, and certainly I know our clients do for theirs too, is first of all, they're alert, that they're curious, that they are responsive, and resourceful. So alert means they are paying attention. There is nothing worse than working with someone and you point out something and go, I guess you're right. And you're like, really? So alert is someone's actually awake and interested and engaged enough to pay attention. Curious is they want to know more. They are inquisitive. They want to actually figure out what happened, good or bad, and replicate the good parts and fix the bad parts. And then responsive is they're actually going to do something about it, not just investigate. And resourceful, which I think is, really the most number one characteristic of a great team member. And Dr. Brad Smart says the same thing in his book, Top Grading, is that if you're resourceful, you don't get stopped by roadblocks. You don't get stopped by obstacles. You ask yourself, how can I be more resourceful about this? And then you start to figure that out. It's fascinating. And our very best team members are absolutely the most resourceful. Kathy Davis, who's also a speaker in this conference, she is one of the most resourceful people I have ever met in my life. And I aspire to be like her in my own realm. And people who are resourceful can just put amazing things together. They're always looking. They're not stopped. And when people are alert, curious, responsive, and resourceful, they produce results that are faster, bigger, cheaper, and better.
I think I like all those things.
Yeah,
Shannon.
faster, easier, bigger, cheaper is how I like to do things. So that's really how the exponentials come about. If you're always minimizing your time and effort and maximizing your results, you're going to have a multiplier company. Your results are going to be 10 times. The other side of that is that if your team members are alert, curious, responsive, and resourceful, they're going to be pretty self-managing. If you provide the leadership that you talked about and a direction of where you want to go, they're going to start saying, oh, we could do this to solve this problem. We could initiate this to create this new revenue stream. We could do that. And as long as they're in alignment with where you're going, all of a sudden, all of those ideas are bubbling up. We call it a bubbling company. And you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. That, I think, is just phenomenal.
Well, I want to stop here for a second because if we start thinking about how this comes together, it is so powerful having the right people that you're working with, your right teammates, and getting clarity of the direction you're going. Boy, I mean, I see that in our businesses that I have the privilege to work with some, unbelievably talented teammates. And it is really good that I don't have to be involved in a lot of things because they're so talented and resourceful. And, sometimes I have to point out, you can spend a little more money. We can put a little more effort behind this and so on. And it's so much fun. And it's fun for them. It's fun for us. And I see that, in many of the entrepreneurs you're coaching that I have the privilege of hanging out with. It's magic. Now, let me go to another segment here, though. I want to make sure we cover a whole bunch of good things you have, Shannon.
My pleasure.
And this is all about passion. Tell me what you're really excited about now that you're working on. You're passionate about helping entrepreneurs. What is it that you're doing?
My newest project is a really interesting conversation, and it's a subject of my next book, which is called Multiplication by Subtraction. So this is holding that team to a really high standard. So multiplication by subtraction is really identifying the team members that are winners, the ones that are okay, and the ones that frankly are doing you harm. And one of the things I've noticed is one characteristic of a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, is that we love to avoid confrontation. We hate it. We really would do almost anything else. And one of the worst kind of confrontations to avoid is that with a team member who is actually doing harm to your company. And it's interesting because I have a framework.
We tend to put it off a little bit, don't we?
Oh, a little bit. I can tell
years.
you, we delayed it 3 years once at Strategic Coach. So
no.
We're not immune from this either. And if you do it within 3 months, you're way ahead of the game in my books. And it's not saying that the people are intrinsically bad or there's something wrong, but they're not a right fit for your company. And sometimes it's, cognitively, they just don't have either the mental horsepower or the training or the skill set that you require. That's fairly straightforward. The other one is maybe what the job requires, what the role requires is not how they naturally solve problems. So they can often be reoriented within your company and placed in a more of a right fit role. But the number one issue in terms of a wrong fit team member is one who is not in alignment with your company values. Those are the ones I think that actually do the most damage. And they're also the ones that tend to be, we have an expression, one of our laws of lifetime growth is always make your contribution bigger than your status. And for these people, it's the opposite. They want their status, and they'll just do the amount of contribution needed to get there. And ultimately, that is not part of an exponential or 10 times self-managing company. So multiplication by subtraction is really the conversation around how do you identify those people? How can you recognize them? Sometimes you've just outgrown certain team members. They helped you get this far, but they're not going to help you get to the next level. And sometimes people are actually doing harm. And then how do you handle that situation? What are the conversations needed? How do you identify those folks? And how can you gracefully exit them on to their next employment opportunity? So for me, it's really interesting. It sounds, I don't want to be harsh or gleeful about it, but I really care about companies. I really care about our clients' organizations. I really care about Strategic Coach. And I actually get really angry when someone is here for the wrong reasons. And I think it's an issue that people don't deal with. And I think it is something that needs to be addressed. Every time I mention it to people, they're like, oh, I need to know more about that. So clearly I'm not the only one. But I feel strongly that this holding a high standard for a team, and you want to keep really great, a good way to lose good team members is to keep someone like that around.
Well, and I find that, this I actually am good at. I call it releasing for new opportunities. And I say it jokingly, but it's really the truth, because everybody I've ever let go, they've done better somewhere else. As you were saying, they're not the right fit. And I also got clarity on what I was looking for. Our team got clarity, and we were able to find the right person. So, I look forward to seeing the continuing work that you're doing, because it's so powerful. But let's go to the next segment.
Okay.
The application of the day. So, what application do you want to share with your fellow entrepreneurs?
Well, let me give a little bit of setup to this, because one of my very favorite, actually there's two favorite apps, I'm sneaking an extra one in here, is by a company called Kolbe, and that's Kolbe.
And I'm going to pull up their website right now, Kolbe.com.
Kolbe.com.
So people can see it.
And Kolbe is one of the tools. I talked about tools earlier in terms of using them to attract and keep the right team members. Kolbe is a brilliant tool to help not measure how someone is motivated or how intelligent someone is, but instead it measures how people solve problems. And last time I checked, a lot of business was about solving problems. And so Kolbe has an incredibly accurate tool to help you do that. So my two favorite apps are really tools one's called Kolbe Bottom Lines, and this is really Kolbe wisdom into an app form. It's a replication of one of their small books, but it gives you all the language, all the terminology, the whole framework, everything that you would need to make Kolbe practical. Keeps it right there.
Okay, I'll be downloading that later. What's the next one?
The next one is called Kolbe to Go. And this allows you to track all of your team members' Kolbes and their profiles. I also have groups for my family, my friends. I make everyone do a Kolbe, in case you haven't figured that out yet. So it allows me to really keep a hold of and track people's Kolbe profiles, which I find really useful, because I can like someone, they can be really smart, but it really adds an extra dimension when I know how they do things. When they're looking to solve a problem or make something happen, that is incredibly useful information to know, especially with anyone I want to work with.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. Okay, let's go to one more suggestion here. Shannon, what would you recommend as the book of the day?
Okay, I'm an avid reader, so asking me just one, John, is torture. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I would have to say Tribal Leadership by Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher Wright. Tribal leadership, to my mind, describes 5 different levels of tribes, different than Seth Godin's tribes, And what he really articulates in a completely different way is really what he calls stage 3 to stage 4, which what I would say in our world is moving up to unique ability teamwork. That would be stage 4. And I love it because it was so great reading about what I'd experienced in someone else's framework and different language and different words. And for a lot of the entrepreneurs I know who are interested in building self-managing companies, this is also their kind of go-to book for looking at how to create the conversations that creates a higher level of teamwork. So tribal leadership, if I had to narrow it down to one, that would be it.
No, it's a great book. It's a great book. Okay, so now I'm going to put you on the spot, Shannon. You get the privilege of working with so many entrepreneurs. I'd like to have you give that one entrepreneurial insight. Let me play the segment. What would be that one insight that you want to share with everyone?
Again, you're killing me. Narrowing down to one. I would say really know what your unique ability is. Know what your passion is. Know what you're best at, and how you can be a hero doing that. Your audience, to who your audience is, and really do only that. Everything else, surround yourself with people who are unique at everything that you're not. That really would be my number one insight that I want people to have. When we go outside of our area of unique ability, we create messes, we create stuff, we lose energy. It's a mess. So the more we can stay really tight on what our unique ability is with our best audience and surround ourselves with people who are complementary to that, that is the recipe for success. And I'm going to sneak one more in here, John. And the other one is when you do surround yourself with people who have complementary unique abilities, make sure they have an entrepreneurial attitude. Make sure they share your values. Make sure they think a little bit like you do. Then it will be easy.
These are so important and they're great. Let me go to the last segment here. And what I'd like to do is play back the key takeaways I've got. And these have been really good. I've got all kinds of notes here because there's more than, I'm struggling with 3 now, Shannon, after I kept on putting pressure on you. The number one thing that I walk away with is this concept of sharing your goals, your vision, and really painting a picture so that you can enroll everyone in. One of the biggest mistakes, and early in my career I think I did, is I thought I had to keep this secret for some reason. I never understood why. And once you start sharing it, what happens is it becomes richer. So number one is share, no secrets. Mm-hmm. 2, and this is so important in creating the vision, is that 10X. You define that, and I'm totally with Dan. The incremental growth is really hard to do. You're looking for little tiny things, and how can you get better? When all of a sudden you change the game and you say, what about growing the business tenfold? Whatever metric you want to do it on, but that tenfold, all of a sudden you've got to take a step back. And then if you have that great team, they take a step back and you have the ability to do it. And it's amazing watching, having been in strategic coach for 4 years now, seeing these 10Xs being realized, including our own, it's an amazing process. And then the third one was the characteristics of the right teammate. I love being alert. There's nothing worse than you feel like you have to slap on the side. No. Right? But being alert, and really, one of my favorite is curiosity, that they're involved in lifelong learning, that they're making that commitment. They're responsive, they're fully engaged. And then we talked about it a little bit, is resourcefulness. I mean, this is huge. Shannon, was I listening?
2 thumbs up. The only thing I'd want to add that I didn't really stress enough, which I'd like to, is that when you have that 10 times focus, you actually attract 10 times opportunities. Yeah. So they also find you. So not only do you attract the right team members, but you actually attract the right opportunities, and that makes it, incredibly stimulating and fun. But I think you nailed it. Great job.
Well, and I can tell you, we're doing the projects we're doing right now here are coming out of 10X, is that we want to magnify and share the message, and it's amazing with the tool. So let's go to resources. And I have one up on the screen, Colby. I'm going to put up the next one we talked about, is the Team Success Handbook. What are we looking at here?
The Team Success Handbook is actually an explanation of and it's for team members, by the way. By all means, entrepreneurs read it. Hopefully you'll agree with everything I've said. But it actually is the handbook. It's the manual for people working for you to actually understand you, to understand what you're up to, how to work with you better, how to be successful in your organization. So this is the translation document. This is Entrepreneur 101 to the best of my ability to help communicate how to be. These are the success strategies for great team members at Strategic Coach and with our clients' companies. The best people, these are the 12 strategies that we've really figured out.
Okay, that's at teamsuccesshandbook.com, as you can see. And then I'm going to pull up, Shannon, the Strategic Coach website as well. What's there for them?
Lots of things for it. There is so much information, entrepreneurial wisdom on our, even just, that the basic Strategic Coach site, even before you get into the client site, because there's even way more there. But really what's there is an opportunity to think of yourself in a much bigger context. So even if 10 times looks a little big, maybe it looks small, maybe you're at 100 times, you will find information and principles and a way to think strategically about your future that you wouldn't have otherwise. This is distilled entrepreneurial wisdom. There's downloads. We've got webinars. Obviously, it's a way to find out more about the coach program, and also to find a community of people who think like you do. For people who want to grow and invest in their future and always want to be growing, they don't want to settle for the status quo, Strategic Coach is a great place to find that.
Now, Shannon, I want to thank you for spending the time with us today by the magic of Skype here, Silicon Valley, Toronto coming together. And it's so powerful, the messages. And I want you to take the key takeaways, all the suggestions that Shannon had, and really look inward to yourself and your team. Are you sharing that vision, the goals? Are people around you, your key team members, your partners, your team members, your family, do they really know what you're looking to achieve? Have you let them in on the secret? Have you thought big? Are you creating a large game to get you excited and everyone around? And then do you have the right teammates? So Shannon, thank you again. It's been phenomenal.
Awesome, John. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And again, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, let's go out and make it happen.